That's what, for me, is the disappointing. Some of the Milan players, that they didn't have that. How can you not know that? Going into this game, knowing what's at stake, the club you're representing, and to let that get the better of you, and you're one of the senior players.
AC Milan, they are a club that is making a ton of changes, but none of them have actually changed their situation as a whole this season. It's impressive in some ways, change the coach, change some of the players, and still stagnate, but it's far, far less than a club of this stature and its supporters deserve. Another thing that is so bonkers is, it's almost impressive, is that they managed to have no leaders on the pitch as well as no leaders off of it. It's a masterclass in passing the buck, a workshop in finger pointing and shifting responsibility. I mean, I hate to say it because I loved him when he was with us at Benfica, but João Félix for me is a great representation of Milan's situation as a whole right now. Granted, his reputation has taken a hit recently, the last couple of years, but he still seems to carry this air of skill, excellence, of luxury as a player, right? Someone who you can't really count out due to what we've seen from them in the past, although just in flashes. But place him on the pitch, and from Atleti to Chelsea to Barca and to Milan now, and it's becoming easier and easier to understand why he's been bounced around. It's all aesthetic out there and not enough substance lately, which is unfortunate because he clearly has it in him. And you could say the same about Milan in this moment. It's still the same club. It's the iconic badge, matches at San Siro with the Curva Sud putting on a show, a better show than the players at the moment. There are still many moments in their history that you can look back upon that showed their true class. But like João Félix, in this very moment, it's all aesthetic. It's all just reputation built upon what happened years ago. And like the Curva Sud declared on a banner prior to their match against Genoa earlier this season, we give honor to our champions, symbols of a Milan that doesn't exist anymore. They had another banger outside of a massive Milan anniversary party that said, "Incapable directors, a club with no ambition. You are not up to the level of our history. Players without desire and dignity. You are the mirror of this ownership." And you can't really argue with that, right? Another who you could throw in the bin of all aesthetic and not a lot of substance, someone who's actively risking his former glowing reputation with the club, is none other than Zlatan Ibrahimovic. One of the biggest mysteries in football at the moment. Is he an ambassador? No. Is he a sporting director? No. Is he a small-time underworld crime boss that is plotting to take over Gotham City but doesn't quite have the reputation or an answer to Batman yet? Yes, it seems like he is at least making some progress in that area, as you can see. So, while Zlatan is simply saying he's the boss and waxing lyrical about kittens and lions, yada yada yada, Milan is suffering. There's now a massive divide at the executive level, a fight for power, and all of the chaos is bleeding onto the pitch.
They were awful. They've been awful in these last two games as a whole. They haven't been a team in these last two games. They definitely weren't a team in here. There was no cohesion, no synergy. It was a team of individuals.
So, safe to say that this season hasn't been going great. By the way, that soundbite was from the Italian football podcast from Carlo Garganese and Nima Tavalli Rosari. Great podcast. If you have an interest in anything Serie A, you should definitely check it out. I'll link to them below. Now, it isn't always a complete condemnation of a season. Sometimes, it brings great change and leads to success. But whenever there's a sacking of the coach, that says something. And it's funny because looking back at AC Milan's time with Paulo Fonseca, we call him Paulie 9 months after his recent ban, but his time there wasn't that bad on the pitch comparatively, because say what you will about how he handled the squad, which was a big problem, but honestly, those problems are still persisting. New coach, still unhappy with guys like Theo Hernandez and his maturity on the pitch and lack of tracking back or a willingness to work hard on the defensive end of things. Rafael Leão has been benched at the start of matches a few times by Sergio Conceição, and on it goes. With Conceição joining, as a Benfica supporter here, and someone who has seen plenty of the man throughout my years, I really did think that he would have a big impact as far as getting some order within the squad and getting them to run through brick walls as he did with Porto. And with time, he still could. I don't argue against that, but then again, the other half of my brain always wondered, while he was still at Porto, I was wondering this, if his managerial tactics, his man management style, his press conference habits, if any of that would work outside of Porto and the Portugal bubble. Jury's out. Still time for him to prove himself. Milan are in 9th place, one place lower than when Fonseca was in charge. They've crashed out of the Champions League at the hands of Feyenoord, a team that had 14 injuries and were symbolically 14 points off of the top in the Netherlands at the time of defeating AC Milan. A point for every injured dude. Granted, AC Milan has beat them there, as they are 17 points back in Serie A. The one bright spot is perhaps that Supercoppa win and Conceição doing his little cigar dance. How bright the future seemed at that time. Plus, the fact that they are still in the Coppa Italia is a positive. They're in the semis against Inter, who they've actually defeated twice this season, which is a welcome change after Inter had daddied up on them for 6 matches in a row prior to this season. Now, we all know that things trickle down from the top. Bad things. Take your pick of whatever nasty substance you want trickling down. And AC Milan is perhaps the best case study for that notion right now. They are chaotic at the top.
Ma nessuno l'ha capito per la verità, io spero che l'abbia capito tu. Io spero proprio che l'abbia capito tu perché nessuno l'ha capito né competenze.
Yikes. I mean, that exchange says it all, right? That, of course, was Boban, who played for AC Milan for years and also took on an executive role in 2019, working alongside Maldini for just under a year after he publicly criticized Ivan Gazidis, the CEO. That was back in the fall. And now we are almost in spring, a couple of seasons later, literal seasons, and we're seeing papers like Gazzetta dello Sport with front pages like this, Milan senza pace, or no peace at Milan. So anyway, in my previous video on AC Milan from December, I went over all of the Cardinale faults with Martino, the legend, Puccio. What a guy.
You can't be going on business conferences, pretty much the only place that you're addressing things, and saying, I didn't know the history of AC Milan. I had no idea they won all these trophies. Brother, even if that's true, why would you ever admit that? That already shows that you have no idea what you took over and what you bought, right? It's like you're buying a Lamborghini and you're driving at 25 miles an hour. And you're like, I had no idea this car could go fast. Brother, you bought a Lamborghini. How do you not know? How is this possible?
If you didn't see that video, then I'd recommend watching it, as it gives a comprehensive look at how poorly Cardinale and Redbird have run the club so far, how out of touch they are with the club's history, the fan base, all of that. Even things like how Cardinale didn't show up to the 125th anniversary, how the executives entered through the back so they wouldn't have to face the Curva Sud representatives protesting outside of the venue, but the players and coaches had to go in the front to face them. All of that kind of stuff. Some of such being that Zlatan's role is unclear. Sometimes he's seen as an ambassador, but he clearly has more of a role than just that. So is he some sort of director? Is he a consultant? He said he's the boss. He's talked about lions and kittens and how they run away when the lion returns, etc., etc. You know, Zlatanisms like that. But the truth is, I don't know if Zlatan knows his role. He hasn't been able to give a satisfactory answer on it. And it's all come to a head recently. Now it's come out recently that AC Milan CEO Giorgio Furlani probably doesn't know Zlatan's role either, and that there is a rift at the executive level now. Sky Sports reporter Pepe Di Stefano has highlighted that the current search for a new sporting director for AC Milan has really divided the club. Cardinale and Zlatan held meetings in London with 3 candidates: Andrea Berta, seemingly departing Atletico to join Arsenal, it said, Fabio Paratici, formerly of Tottenham and Juve, among other clubs he's worked with Moratti, and of course, Iglitare, formerly the sporting director of Lazio, who is favorite to be selected by AC Milan, which, by the way, the lack of a sporting director really speaks to the last few chaotic transfer windows for AC Milan, both the comings and goings, right? Also, I gotta say this, they brought in 2 Jorge Mendes clients this season, João Félix and Sergio Conceição. Guys, you do not want to walk down this path of becoming a Mendes club. It only brings pain, chaos, destruction. Don't do it, man. Anyway, Furlani, the CEO of AC Milan, wasn't at these meetings to select the sporting director in London and is now in New York meeting with Cardinale privately, as Furlani is trying to underline how central he is to AC Milan when it comes to decision making. He's the CEO after all. He should have the final word. But Zlatan, in his mystery role, has seemingly superseded him somehow, both with his closeness to Cardinale and how he has decision-making power, as well as sort of becoming the spokesperson of AC Milan to the media. Here's what Pepe Di Stefano from Sky Sports Italia said. Quote, and here the same old story comes back into fashion. On one side, the Cardinale sphere with Ibrahimovic, the American's sole point of reference for what concerns the sporting part. On the other, the Elliott sphere with Furlani, a numbers man who in recent years, with careful management, has put Milan back on track from a financial point of view. I believe that at the moment, everything has been put on hold. I'm talking about technical issues such as the choice of the new sporting director, the possible future coach, and the summer mercato. First, the balance of power within the Rossoneri club will have to be decided and rebalanced. These will therefore be delicate days and weeks. If there are differences, they must be clarified and an internal balance must be found, because without harmony, it will be difficult to build a winning Milan. But Sky has also revealed even more about how Furlani has actually brought 2 lawyers with him for his meeting between himself and Cardinale. He's coming suited up, as he wants to show that he holds the power and that Ibrahimovic and Cardinale's decision to go with Tare has to be signed off by Furlani, who may not agree with their choice. So when you look at all of this, the chaotic transfer windows, the chaotic results on the pitch, the protests from supporters, I mean, all of it can be traced back to one single point: the chaos that Redbird and Cardinale have heaved upon the club since purchasing them from Elliott back in 2022. And you know, it's a very sad situation if you're an AC Milan supporter, because under Elliott, with names like Maldini, Massara, etc., if the club had just allowed them to keep working, had given them the funds they needed to build out the squad, as Maldini had said so publicly, then it's likely, not guaranteed of course, but likely that Milan would be in a far, far better place than they are now. The kits, the badge, and the stadium all still resemble AC Milan, but the soul of the club is gone, as it's being pulled in multiple directions from the inside. Thanks, as always, for watching, guys, and I'll see you in another video soon. Later.